Hello and welcome everyone to the Transform Your Relationships live show. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the amazing Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Live, yeah.
Live from San Diego. We are so excited, as usual, to be here doing a great show on a, deep topic. We don't go light here, we go deep. And today's topic is no different. We are talking about passive aggressive behavior. I hear that word thrown out a lot. Do you?
Oh, yes, and it's a catch-all for I don't like how you are. You're not doing what I want you to be doing. But it's really a good idea to know what it really is and what it really isn't, and how to recognize it so that you're labeling it correctly. And just a hint, don't be labeling it to the person you think who has it.
You're being passive aggressive.
Yeah, not helpful. No.
No. It doesn't. Accusing someone of that, even especially if you just think they're that because you're frustrated, is not remedying the situation. So we are going to demystify what it is to be passive aggressive today. So if someone's not responding to you, is that automatically passive aggressive?
No, maybe they don't like you. Maybe they have no time. Don't make assumptions about other people's behavior. Start there. If someone's not responding to you, they're not responding to you. Don't read anything into it. Ask a question, make an invitation, do something, then find out what they do. They'll tell you who they are and what they want. You don't have to make assumptions about them.
That's where we get into trouble.
Sure.
Making assumptions about what we think, and not, I think when we make assumptions about people, that can lead to behavior in us that tends towards that not straightforwardness. So should we start out defining what passive aggressive really is?
Sure. I think the simplest thing to say is passive aggressive is a repeated pattern of somebody who engages only indirectly in communicating their needs and wants and responding to you. So they're people who don't want to have conflict up front. They are afraid of conflict. So they agree to things, for instance, that they know they're not going to do in order not to have the conflict in the moment. Then when you call them on what they agreed to, which of course they didn't do, then they can't own that either because that means they're made a mistake. So then they blame you. That's a good example of how passive aggressive runs.
Now, what if it goes only part of the way there? So they're conflict averse and they repeatedly don't tell you what they need or want, right? And then you call them on why didn't you do it? And they say, I forgot.
Well, that's typical passive aggression.
Yeah, they don't blame me, but they just, I just forgot.
Well, that's typical passive aggression. That's not halfway. Well, you're right. That's halfway there. But if they get cornered at the I forgot part, then they'll say, why are you always on my case? I told you I forgot. Now it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually they get to it being your fault, but they may be covert in their first step. Right.
And in their minds, they're totally justified. It is your fault, right? Like if I'm putting myself in that person and who's a good person, right? They don't have evil in them. They're just conflict averse and they do this passive aggressive to avoid, whatever. It may be to retaliate at some way and the only control they have, but it's almost like they have no ability to say what they want because they're afraid of the response. Like I've seen passive aggressive happen in response to someone who's always, they're not good enough, always saying they're not good enough.
Sure. And passive aggressive is not only in the response, but it's in the responsibility. Like if you've been raised by a parent rather, who's always going, why didn't you do that? And what are you doing that? And why do you say that? And who do you think you are? And all that kind of stuff. You want them off your back. So you get to, sure, I'll do that. Yes, I understand. I got it. And meanwhile, they're going, not in this lifetime. But they're
well, then they're going like, well, even if I do it, it's not going to be good enough,
That's right. So
right?
they already know that. So they have that pattern. So they bring that pattern into a relationship that could be perfectly healthy, but they're afraid that that will be the same way for them. And so they bring these behaviors in. So if it's really wise if you can go the extra mile, if you can be that curious, empathic person who says, well, what could I would really like to engage with you in this. It doesn't seem to be working out for us. How could it? And you get them to have some safe input into it so that they don't have to avoid it anymore. And when I'm working with my clients, especially couples, what they tend to do is to shortcut their communication. They don't say enough. So one of the things my clients tell me that they really got from the time with me is I always say 2 sentences more. Say 2 sentences more than you're comfortable with or you think you can get out, and clarify, elaborate, give something. And if you say those 2 sentences more, like, oh, well, I can see that that didn't work out very well, and I wish that it had happened on time and it didn't. What could we do about that? Then we get that inclusive language of the we-ness rather than you. and and then they begin to think, well, there may be some safety here for me.
Oh, so is a key telltale sign that they don't feel safe.
Sure.
Um,
If I'm not safe to be who I am and say no, you know, and that's ingrained in you from a long time. Imagine, I think I've said before that long ago when Tupperware parties were a big deal, I learned to say, no, I don't go to Tupperware parties, right? And remember, no is a complete sentence. And if you don't have the strength to do that, if it's never worked out for you in a primary relationship in your life, then you may not know that that's a muscle you can strengthen, and you can. Yeah. Yeah.
so no is a complete sentence, and it's really uncomfortable for a passive aggressive type of person to say it as well, because their strategy had been to avoid conflict, and no feels like it's against what somebody else wants.
Can you imagine the freedom that a person who was trained in their early life to be passive aggressive feels when the world doesn't stop turning and no Roman candles go off when they say, no, I can't do that for you? And the conversation is included right in the first piece of it, as opposed to saying yes and then waiting for the downfall,
There's a
for every
lot of energy that goes into passive aggression. It is not a passive thing. It
no,
is very
it's
active.
and very resentment filled. So you just keep building resentment because you're putting me in this corner. And now I said this, and now I'm waiting for you to be angry with me. And then there's going to be more of that. And I resent that. And I already have a whole ton of resentment for the person who taught me that I have to be passive aggressive in the first place. So it's just a wonderful freedom to say, whoa, do I behave in passive aggressive ways? Which is why I created the passive aggressive checklist. If you go to passive-aggressive.net, there's a 2-part checklist there that you could check and say, have somebody in mind and see if they're passive aggressive, or have you in mind and see if you're passive aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
That's
And so I did,
passive-aggressive.net.
cool.
Remember the dash.
So I just put that in the chat box for everyone, passive-aggressive.net, and you can get the checklist right there for you and check yourself out, check others out. We definitely want to not throw this word out there. I think that it proliferates, and it dilutes the problem. With the problem of people not communicating, holding in that resentment, and then naming other people something they don't even know what they're talking about.
Yes. And also we need to learn to identify it, Laura, because that's a big problem. Like I had a woman who I had a little interesting interchange with that I've done 2 videos on my YouTube channel. Um, and using her emails, and the last one was to demonstrate passive aggressive behavior. So here's a little clue. The first line in her last email was this: I'm sorry you took offense to that. That is passive aggressive.
Let's dissect that.
Yeah, because you see, people will accept that because they're a little insecure mostly, and they're thinking, am I making a mistake? Am I a good person? They're thinking about themselves. So when somebody writes, I'm sorry you took offense to that, means all of this is your fault. And that's passive aggressive. Why didn't this person say to me, I'm sorry, what I wrote seemed offensive? That was not my intent. But oh no, the passive aggression, which went on through the whole email, which I happen to have right here, uh, was like, you. There are no flies on me over here. I'm Miss Passive Aggressive, but you. And so learn to be aware of that when somebody says, well, I'm sorry you feel like that. Think about the number of couples where one partner is talking about how they feel, trying to get a solution, trying to engage in a conversation that will make some change. And the other partner says, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. How condescending is that? That's just complete passive aggression.
So let's talk about why it is. It's not just the blaming, it's your fault. There's this whole dynamic of where I thought there's an avoidance of conflict in there. They're trying
Sure.
to prevent a response from you, or appease you in some way, and then not do what they agreed to, and then blame you for them not doing it. So,
Refusal to take responsibility for any part of the interaction, right? So in this case, this woman did something that was beyond the pale, in my opinion. And so then she wrote this email. And so basically, what she's saying is, what I said to you, which was incredibly offensive, um, is not offensive, but there's something wrong with you that you took it as an offensive statement. So there's nothing wrong with me and what I put out in the world. It's you and your receptors.
yeah. So if there's a lack of actually compassion there for the fact that, and responsibility, like you said, on top of that is really, or underlaying the whole thing is like, no, I didn't hurt you. I would never hurt you. Right?
All right, I had no intent to hurt you. I mean, she did make a statement later that said it wasn't done with malintent, but that didn't count after, I'm sorry you took offense to that. It was very instructional what she had said to me. In other words, good people behave like this and you're not behaving like this. So therefore, do the math, right? And I don't know this person. They just decided that they were going to put me up against the wall and give me a little lesson and a talking to. And no, not on my watch. That's not going to happen. So then I get this, I'm sorry you took offense to that. So let's all think about it. When somebody says to you, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, does that ever tweak you and go, ooh, that seems double edged? Like you're not really empathizing with me. I've just said that we're having a talk about something that has exchanged between us and I'm not happy with it. And then you tell me that you're sorry I feel that way, meaning you're not sorry about what you did or said. No, we need to take that apart, like you said. And it's such a straightforward thing. People do it very, very frequently.
There's so many layers here. It's, there is a way to apologize where you're empathizing and it still may not be that person's fault, or, like I did something and it totally was accidental, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry that you feel this way and that what I did had you feel this way wasn't my intent, you know,
Yeah, I would just leave out the I'm
the
sorry you feel that way
yeah,
altogether and
yeah,
just say,
because it's
no, my,
cloaked. It's you can't really tell where a person's coming from, and it's almost like in this interaction, the example you're giving is there was something triggered in that person, and they got offended, they got hurt, and their response is to say, I didn't hurt you. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm in the clear because
Mhm.
especially I can prove it because I'm of this belief that things go this way for people who are of a higher caliber or of a certain level and or belief system, and therefore it's like a whole justification of the way that person's being versus just dropping the facades there and the justifications and the let's just be real. and
Yeah.
and I, when I get triggered, and an email is horrible. Do not respond when you're triggered ever in an email. It's like, don't go there. It just never works out right. You never get across the right meaning. You're just trying to relieve your own tension, and it's not gonna turn out right. I promise you.
Yeah.
Get on the phone or don't respond. Okay. Or meet them in person or wait till you see them the next time. It is not appropriate to respond when you're triggered if by anything. And you can write this email, just don't send it, okay? Because it's
Um,
a way of processing it.
yeah, make
I've
sure
written,
you write it in draft and you
yeah,
can't send it.
yeah, without the
Put,
return
write it
email
write it
address.
in Notepad.
Yeah, journal about it, something. But like if I were going to write an email out just to see where I'm at, it's such a reflection because you, by looking at that email, you know, if you were the one writing it, you could see everywhere you're triggered if you're aware enough,
Mhm.
and you can learn a lot about yourself. And I think that's one way to break the pattern is to really sit with the discomfort you're feeling as someone who just doesn't like conflict and sit with that. Like, I don't want to try to manipulate, like, am I trying to manipulate the situation so I can avoid and da da da. It's really informative as a communication strategy.
Yes, and that's why I say do your journaling in Notepad where you would have to copy and paste it into an email. Don't by chance hit send. Because if you take the time, and you're so wise to say that, I think, Laura, because if you take the time to respond and then look at your response and say, all right, what's in that? You know, I mean, you know that old saying, there are no flies on me. Well, if you write it out in Notepad, you may find a few flies or flies' eggs in there, and you might want to take the opportunity to rethink. And also, there's another piece. Like some conversations need to end. Some relationships need to end. And using this example again, I mean, we had no relationship. This was a discovery call to talk and kind of get to know each other. And so that was interesting that she showed the true colors right there. But sometimes, if you have this going on all the time, there is no future in continuing. Because after I got the last email, the only thing that I could do was not respond because it was apparent from the 3 email exchanges that we had that it was imperative to her to be right and to teach me why I was wrong. And at that moment, like, no, thank you.
No.
Just no, thank you.
Yeah.
Just stop it. And at the end of her second email, which gave me a complete clue to stop, she said, if you don't feel like you want to talk, the ball is in your court. And then hear about this passive aggressive, have a wonderful day. So I've dumped all over you for a whole bunch of words and then, oh, by the way, have a wonderful day.
There may have been a time when I would have written something like that when I'm feeling all righteous or whatever. But if you really read that, if I were to read that before I would send it, I would feel all icky, just icky about being
If
so
you were aware, like
putting
you are.
putting someone in their place, telling someone how they're, whatever, about it's just it's classic. It's very classic. I think I know all there is to know about what's right and good and healthy communication styles, and it's
And let me
all,
school you.
let me school you. And, it kind of makes me laugh, and it makes me very sad for that person because there's a lot of angst there. There's a lot of, but then there's hope for potential growth and things like this where, we always talk about we can only We can take responsibility for our side of things.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, to say no, to not respond are perfect responses, right? They can be very gracious, actually.
Well, it stops something and that's going nowhere good. And, sometimes if it happens to be your partner or your parent, you can say, I don't think this conversation is going to come to a satisfactory result. So let's just drop it for now
Yeah.
and walk away. You have the right to set those kind of boundaries. If you have to be in relationship with certain people in your life, teach them how to treat you. You're 100% responsible for doing that.
And model being responsible. So, in what you just said, if you're saying to them, this conversation is not going any further, it's not like with blame, it's like with responsibility. The fuller sentence might be, this conversation is not going anywhere. I have no access to taking it to a positive conclusion. I
And
don't have the tool, right? I don't
yeah,
have the tool. I don't have the awareness. I don't have what it takes. Let's let it lie, because it's only going to get worse, because we want to go into being right and making somebody else wrong. The minute you go there, the best solution is to say, I don't want to go there.
bye bye.
Bye. I need to stop and make sure I'm okay and you're okay, and we don't make this worse.
And
you
I
know
think that's all genius what you just said. And I want to add a piece to it. If you already are a person who is really, really aware of that kind of thing, and you see this coming at you, recognize it for what it is and just kindly say, no, thank you. Right? Because it's not like you don't have the skills or tools or whatever. You may very well, because you can calibrate what's coming at you and you go, whoa, I know that energy.
hmm
When I was making the videos, which are on my YouTube channel at For Relationship Help, I said on each of the videos, I like what Abraham Lincoln said. He said, I don't like that man very much. I better get to know him. So this was one of those cases where the woman made a really poor first impression on me. And I thought, whoa, I need to know what that's about. So I'll engage her. Yeah, wrong. You know,
Well, right, you found out.
I did.
You didn't even have to meet with her to find out.
No, but I also learned that I would prefer to trust my intuition.
Mm.
You know, um, I was right the first time. I read the energy correctly. And I did not need to go through all of this. Now, I'm grateful for the fact that I got two absolutely fabulous examples to make Facebook Live videos about. But I did not need to take my body through that stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew that when I met her.
Mm.
Right? I knew that. We're not all a good energy fit for everybody else. Everybody's at different stages of their growth. This is a younger person who thinks they know everything. Okay, great. I got it. You think you know everything. And the way she presented was, and you're wrong, and I'm right. So I was just a little lenient with my belief in myself at that point to even suggest we take it further. And I learned that in future I will just trust that and move on.
And it's not to say this person doesn't have valuable skills
No,
and tools
no.
and wisdom and knowledge. It's just the way it was presented, was a block.
And it might work for other people. It might
Yeah.
be absolutely what they need and want in their life. Can't think why, but might be. And maybe they're at the same age and stage, and maybe they'll find a way to work that out.
The passive
And maybe,
aggressive might not come up.
well, sometimes millennials talking with one another don't have the same perceptions of this kind of thing.
Right.
So, that might work well. And maybe being that assertive, I'm sure she would call it assertive. I call it aggressive. Maybe that works for her.
Yeah.
But
And
it
let's
is your
distinguish the
thing.
difference between aggressive and assertive.
Sure. Aggressive is that I'm not just being assertive and saying this is what's so for me and this is what I prefer, which is all about me sharing with you so that you get an insight into me. Aggressive is when I want you to be different and I need to tell you why you need to be different and how you need to be different. And aggressive is usually served up with a far too ample serving of emotion.
Yeah, there's almost an intent to harm. It may be a subconscious, but it's hurtful.
Well, the intent is to squash,
To squash.
like let me put a lid on you,
Right.
right? and uh, and so when somebody does that, you can say, well, my lids are fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, not needing that right now. And and it's really important, I think, all the time, Laura. I think we give people insights and permission to be who they are. Like if somebody behaves like that, then the lesson for me, I got it when I first met her. Why did I do all that?
Mm,
I didn't need to do all that. Did I need the revalidation of my read on the energy? I
maybe.
guess so,
Mhm.
right? And I own that. I learned from that. But I don't need another lesson. And now I know that.
Right. Now, if you're in the relationship with somebody in a family or, and now there are times when they are being passive aggressive and you have to learn to deal with it and communicate better with them and see if there's a way to break through into a higher level of communication that's not harmful. We've talked about that today, backing off on the making them wrong so they can be, how can we use the we language? We can work together on this and making it safe for them. I think a lot of times it's a reaction. Other times it's an aggression. Either way, it's aggressive because it's causing harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, I find that sometimes the people who call other people passive aggressive are the passive aggressive. And they're just throwing it out because they don't even know what it is.
Well, that's true. And they want things to stop. Passive aggressive people want things to stop. Like I want to put a lid on you. I want it to end. And so it's like blame, 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 push, push, push you away. And they're lonely. They don't want to push you away. They want you in their life, but everything is so fearful. And you can't be their therapist. You can just be you doing the best job of you can. And you don't need to tell them what you think about them. You don't need to tell them anything beyond the personal weather report.
Right.
This does not feel good to me, and I don't wish to continue the conversation. Right? You're allowed to say that. You don't have to have some ironclad reason that they will buy as to why you don't want to do what they want you to do, no matter what the circumstance is, Tupperware party or this email exchange.
Or taking out the trash by garnet. Gosh darn it.
Yeah, I mean, I've written about it. I've written 2 books about passive aggression. You go to Amazon, put my name in, you'll see all the books that I've written, and 2 of them are about passive aggressive behavior. So if you happen to resonate with this conversation and you say, now, what do I do about all this? I've already written all that for you. So if this is going, whoa, yes, how many times has my partner or my parent or someone said, I'm sorry you feel that way?
Mm-mm.
And all of a sudden the light bulb goes on for you and go, no wonder I feel so icky when that comes at me. And I do all this mental gymnastics to try and make it, what could I do to have you understand me better? Instead of saying, whoa, no, 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 that's not all right with me.
Mm-hmm. It's tricky to navigate the passive aggressive world, and sometimes people are just being passive and not passive aggressive. They don't have the intent to harm. They just keep taking it in and not and doing their best with it. And then the person on the other side is still frustrated. Just because you're frustrated doesn't mean they're aggressive. They might just be passive.
Yeah, and passive aggressive people don't mean harm. They mean safety to themselves.
Right.
They're not trying to do you harm. They're trying to keep themselves safe. Their self-esteem is tarnished, and they're trying to make it all right. And so that's why they do that. Because if I could say it's all you, then I don't have to think about my part in it and feel a little maybe a little tarnished myself. And so, but aggressive people want to do you harm. Passive aggressive people want to keep themselves safe. Passive people simply don't feel they have the right to take up space and draw breath and say what's so for them. And so what they need to do is read Kaizen for Couples and read about how to give a personal weather report that will help them feel that they are confidently assertive.
And it does take practice to speak the truth without harming anyone,
Yes.
without going into a pattern of aggression or passive aggression, which means without blame or shame or guilting someone else into it. The minute those energies are there, it's like poison in the well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at it with that analogy and you don't want relationships to be poisoned, then it's a good time to read your book, Kaizen for Couples. It's a good time to refrain from the patterns and sit with what we talked about earlier, just to summarize, like if you need to write that email back or you want to spew out something and you know it's coming from a triggered, angry, fearful place, write it out first in a place that's not going to get sent by accident,
Yeah.
and sit with that. Really let it inform you. What is it that you really need? How can you express that? How can you take responsibility for needing that? And it's okay. You may need, you just want peace. You just want fulfillment. You just want more joy and love. And whatever's going on right now is preventing that from it. So there's a way out. You may be really down in a well right now with a habit that you or another and you are in, and crawling out is like crawling in the dark. We're all just kind of brailing our way through it, but the tools in Kaizen for Couples, our shows here have really captured, some extra ways you can start thinking and getting your way through to the light.
Yeah, passive aggressive people don't feel safe in life. And so they're kicking and screaming and actually they're doing it proactively. Like, you're not going to make me wrong, so I'm going to make sure I cover all the bases. And if you could come from that compassionate place, but remember, compassion starts by being self-compassionate. You can't give a gift you don't have. So don't be like overextending to other people something that you wouldn't give to yourself. So that's maybe a place where many of us need to think, like, am I making other people more important than myself? Because what no what how you say it, I boiled it down in one of my books that I was going into the schools and I couldn't say the golden rule. So I said, give only what you're willing to receive. Right. So if you come to that place where you can actually be clean and clear with your communication and you don't have to have any fear, you can be compassionate with yourself, which says, no, I don't want to do what you want me to do. That's okay to do it. But if you come from a place where it's not okay to say no, you may develop passive aggressive behaviors and it not working for you. So it might be today that you say, oops, I'm doing things that are not working for me. Or I now understand that that person comes from a fear. And if they're really close to me, maybe I can have compassion for them and get a little bit inside and say, no, you're safe with me. And here's how we stay safe is we communicate the truth at the beginning. Like if I ask you to do something and you don't want to do it, it's okay with me for you to say no. In fact, I'd prefer it. And that would help me feel safe in the relationship because we've been honest. Can we make an agreement to do that? And that's a gift you can give to somebody who's fearful and behaving in a passive aggressive way.
Brilliant. Rewatch that. That's amazing. And we talk a lot about compassion and in particular self-compassion. And I have in the Feminine Power card deck that I created a whole, what I call a suit, and it's the compassion suit. And it has primarily to do with self-compassion because the more compassion we give ourselves, the more we can give to others and not be like an enabler,
Right.
of this pattern or of a pattern. So a couple of the cards I wanted to share was practice compassionate self-talk is one of the principles.
Lovely.
And the action on the back to do says today, treat yourself like you would treat a baby who's learning to walk.
Mm.
Write down 5 things you can praise and encourage yourself about. If you're just even practicing praising yourself, praise is going to come out of your mouth more.
Hmm.
You
And,
know,
if praise doesn't work for you, let's just put in the word encourage,
no, or encourage.
right?
Praise or encourage yourself. Yep, it's in
Yeah.
there, right in there. You put it right there.
Because sometimes praise, it rings a bell for us, like, who do you think you are? But encouraging yourself to move forward, to grow, to strengthen, to take up space and draw breath and make it all right. That's your path to assertiveness and your path to living confidently and increasing your self-esteem. You don't need to behave from a passive aggressive way. Maybe in some relationships you do. If you can't fix those relationships, put some distance in those relationships and be with people who were you don't need passive aggressive.
By the way, you don't have to do this alone. We're here because we offer help. You
Yeah.
know, Roberta, you have amazing, amazing support. I mean, you even offer a free consult for those who are ready for help. For relationshiphelp.com is your one-stop shop for everything Rhoberta.
Yeah.
From, videos to podcasts to downloads to complimentary sessions to blog posts to assessments. Uh, Again, for relationshiphelp.com. I can't tell you enough. You don't, if you're feeling like, how do I actually do what you're saying? Get help, bring yourself to someone who can. I love supporting people in getting their businesses and communications right on, spot on, and of course in the feminine power, exploring that together as well. And the feminine power cards are certainly available at femininepowercards.com. I was going to say share one more card. Cultivate Compassion is what we've been talking about, right? So here's an action you can do with that. Practice restraint from disempowering actions. The next time you want to criticize another, say nothing. Allow it to dissipate and accept what's happening. And see what you're going to be forced to feel what's really going on with you in a sense. And slowly over time, you might get some insights. May happen instantly, like, oh, I survived and I didn't criticize. Could be the first one, I didn't have to. And but I'm still agitated about this. So what do I do about it, right? The release of that agitation is just to criticize, but that's really not the healthy way to do it. So I'm
Mhm.
inviting people into a first step to find something else that one can do. We might want to do a whole show on what can we do other than criticize.
Yeah, I think we should, because there are two things in criticism. One is the inner courtroom and the inner critic, and then how that interplays with anything that you perceive as criticism in your world.
We do have to talk about that. And I know we
Yeah,
have mentioned it here and there, but let's do a whole show on that. And that's a
sure.
great place. We've done more than our half hour's fair share today. We'd love to keep this to a half an hour, but it's a rich topic. So if you've got questions, you can contact us at our website. For relationshiphelp.com is Roberta's, and mine is transformtoday.com. And we'll be back with you in another couple of weeks, another fabulous episode. Is that going to be right before Mother's Day?
Very close, yes.
I think so. So maybe we'll talk about mothers. Or
Yes,
we'll be
yes.
right after. No, it'll be, yeah, right before it. So mothers and criticism, the inner courtroom, that might be a really great topic. So, and we welcome your comments here. If this has been supported, we'd love to know. All right. Have a great one.
Yes, you too, and make it a great day, everybody.
Bye.